0.2, 0.5, 0.7, 0.7. Check menu item not checked. Large text check.
We need some hold music or something. Hello, I'm talking. Can you hear me, Ian, too? We did it. We've clicked the buttons in the correct order to start the thing. I can leave now? All right, cool. Because, like, the new Path of Exile League starting in, like, a 30 seconds, so I was hoping that we could make this kind of quick, you know? We'll let this roll for another 1 or 2 more minutes, maybe. Let people filter in.
Yeah.
Do. 1 more minute. We haven't started yet. We're waiting one more minute for some more people to filter in. Just letting the suspense build, you know. All right, shall we? Let's
Let's do it.
make it happen.
All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Discord developers community event. It's a Friday, which is very exciting. It's a rainy day here on at Discord's secret island layer, so I hope you're all staying dry wherever you are. Um, Today we're gonna mostly be doing Q&A, but I have some stuff to go over before we jump into the Q&A and the Slido link, which is linked in the announcement. So for starters, yes, this is being recorded. We'll post the recording in the stage info channel afterwards. So you can look forward to that, share it with your friends, whatever. I also just wanted to give a couple reminders or a walkthrough of the Q&A process. So we want to answer as many questions as we can. Here's how the process works. We use the link that we posted about a week ago to collect questions. So if you ask questions in the text channels while we're hosting the event, we may not see them. Someone in text chat may respond to them, but if you have a burning question, please submit them to us through the link. We have just under 200 questions, and we're going to start with a few of the top of mind things and then work our way down the most upvoted ones. So if you head to the link now, you can still upvote. And this is going to stay on throughout the conversation that we're having today. All the questions were let through except for a few things. If you don't see your question, here's why. Number one, we get a lot of questions about badges. We have no updates to share on badges today. Number two, if you have questions about a specific individual support ticket, we want to address those with you directly and not publicly in front of 400 other people. But we did get questions about bots flagged for ongoing policy discussions. There may be some of you here. So we have finished the internal review and are almost done replying to these. If you haven't heard from us on those yet, you'll get an individual answer from us by midweek next week. So thanks for your patience on those. And then the third category of questions that are not on the final list are just things that are unannounced that the API team, like we are just straight up not the ones to answer them. So as a reminder, this is time for the team to talk with the team that works on the API. So if you ask questions about like client features or things like access to premium memberships, we're going to prioritize the developer community questions about the API for these monthly dev events. So those are set aside from now. That said, we have a lot of questions today. For the ones that we don't get to, we're going to do what we did last time, post a written follow-up to more questions that we don't have time for. So last time we covered, I think, about 45 more in the follow-up. If you missed this, you can check them out now in the stage info channel, and those will be posted in the following days after this. And then lastly, if you have a question and didn't have time to submit it before the event started, we're going to send out a post-event survey just like last time, so you can submit feedback there and we'll see it. So that's what I wanted to say about questions. Before we dive into the Q&A, we want to start by making sure everyone is up to speed on the message content, on message content becoming a privileged intent after April 30th, 2022. So some important facts for those of you out there who have questions about this. First, this change is for verified bots only. Unverified bots can still access message content. Also, message content will still work in DMs and mentions. Second, we announced this at the end of July. Our next steps were to come back with more details on our policy and also the date for when you'll be able to apply. The policy page was posted Monday, in case you missed it, so hopefully a lot of your questions can be answered by reading it. But things that I would highlight, next Monday, October 25th, you can start applying for the intent. You'll be able to do this within the developer portal. And cool update for you all, intent applications can now be done directly through the developer portal. You no longer need to submit a support ticket that is separate. We've gotten a lot of questions here that are answered by the FAQ, so that's pinned in the message intent channel. Please give it a read. And we know that this is a big change for some of you. We really appreciate the feedback that we've gotten about what features you need most before you can migrate, what your challenges are. It helps us know how we can smooth that path for you. So appreciate it, and please keep it coming. So that's message content stuff. Thanks for listening to me, if you're all still here listening. Transitioning to Q&A. So we're going to start off top with like 3 questions that we get a lot of in general, and then we'll dive into the Slido upvoted ones. So the first area, I guess this is not a question, but we want to acknowledge that there's a gap right now when it comes to having discussions about Discord developer topics that aren't API related, like bugs, feature requests, etc. So we use our GitHub repo for that right now. We really value those discussions and want to create a place for these to live where they can be discussed in the open and thoroughly and respectfully, and in a way where staff can follow what the specific concerns and suggestions are, and also respond. So we're going to be doing a refresh to the DDev server, like cleaning up the FAQ, some channels, adding new channels, and so on. We're aiming to roll out these changes within about 2 weeks, and there will be a place to have these discussions. So we'll clarify in 2 weeks, along with the refresh, where kind of these more open-ended discussions can live. It may be on GitHub, it may be in DDevs, but there will be a place for it, and we'll see to it. Side note, this refresh is going to help with the live event Q&A. So we're experimenting with different ways to do this. And your feedback on the whole Slido process has been helpful. The other thing is clarification between what happens with intents when you're unverified and between 75 and 100 servers. It used to be that at 76 plus, you could not manipulate the intent switches on your own anymore. And if you needed to turn them on, you need to apply for verification. This is no longer true. So we've made a change to allow you to toggle intents up until the point you submit for verification. So while your app is in an unsubmitted state, you can toggle the intents freely. Once you've submitted your application and after it being approved, the toggles are locked unless you reapply for them. So after verification, if the intent is turned on and wasn't approved, you won't be able to join servers even if you're verified. That's actually all the talking that I had to do. So the first question off the top of the extremely common question list is, will you raise the limit of slash commands? And before we jump into that, like, I probably should introduce myself. And I also want to introduce the person answering the questions. So I'm Ian. I'm the engineering manager on the Bots and API team. I'm joined here by my friend Mason, product manager for Bots and API. And he will be the one answering probably all of the questions today. So Mason, I have a question for you.
I have an answer for you.
Will you or will you not raise the limit of slash commands?
Well, I personally, with my own 2 hands and keyboard, do that. Yeah, so this obviously gets asked a lot. We, right now, do not have plans to increase the limit of slash commands. We have a lot of improvements that are coming, like better UI for subcommands and groups, which is something that has been asked a lot about, as well as fuzzy matching to make it easier to find more quote-unquote hidden commands. However, if we find that after those improvements there are still issues, we can consider raising the limit. Don't forget, you have global commands, guild commands, subcommands, and groups. So you've got a lot more than 100. It's, 100 global commands, 100 guild commands, 25 groups within each command, 25 subcommands within each group. It's a lot. But even after the UX improvements, if we find that it's not quite doing the job, like, we can talk about raising the limits. We just want to make sure that we make those changes first to see if they help, because adding more commands is not like an insufficient amount, or is not a small amount of data to pipe around.
Okay,
Cool.
Mason. Great. That's command limits. Kind of the same answer that we've been giving this whole time, but it's something that people are definitely interested in. So the next question is, what what do we think about bots being flagged for suspicious growth, and what explanations can we offer here?
Yeah, certainly. So let's talk about suspicious and inorganic growth for a second here. So let's address sort of the elephant in the room first here, or the dinosaur in the room, if you're Ian. Um, there's a popular belief that when we're talking about growth and blocking things for growth, we're acting against bot lists. That's not true. We are not against adding your bot to bot lists. The reason that bots get flagged is because behavior that bot lists can enable can be or look like abuse. There's a little bit of nuance to that, so like here's the gist. We've gotten about 20,000 plus verifications to date over the course of when the system has been live. Mitigating spam requests and abusive behavior is an important part of keeping our ecosystem safe. As part of that, as our sort of heuristic, we want to make sure that your bot is engaging with the users in the guilds in which it's added. So, servers that have a ton of bots in them, but those bots are not actively engaged with and it's just a couple people, raises some eyebrows. Servers that have only your bot in them and like one other person that also have very little engagement also raise some eyebrows. To be clear, we're not talking about botless servers here. We're talking about servers with like 2 people and 5,000 bots, or a ton of servers with just one person and just your bot, in which there is no active conversation. Um, it is through a combination of these efforts that we determine growth. We can do a better job communicating this, and we can tune our heuristics and criteria to be a little bit more forgiving. We've actually done that over the course of this year, more than once, actually. And the number of bots flagged this way is actually a very small percentage of people coming through the queue. But it does feel bad for the developers who do get flagged. We have to be cautious with how much detail we share, because this is a matter of anti-abuse. But if you truly believe that your bot was incorrectly rejected, you can reach back out on the ticket that you received to appeal. There's a couple other sort of thoughts around verification and these things that I think are worth calling out. One is a common question that still comes up about like, what about all of the bots that are in very large guilds but are in under 75 servers? How come they are not like flagged in similar ways? That's a separate problem than things being like things happening at scale. For example, if you have a bot that is in a lot of large verified servers, like the Destiny 2 LFG server, and it's only in those types of things, but it's not verified because it's not in more than 100 servers yet, right? The admins in those servers are going to be more discerning about what they add. You know, a bot that gets added to a server of 100 people might be vetted by the admins of that server a little bit less than the admins of a very large verified server are going to look at things. It's not to say that it's not a vector that we care about, but it's a different problem. We'll continue taking a look at this, but like they are not quite apples to apples, is what I'm saying. Like the scale at which you can access by being in more than 100 servers is significantly more than the scale at which an average bot can access by being in a few very large ones. There are not many bots that really fall into that category. And frankly, a lot of those bots have actively reached out to us and asked to get verified, and we've told them no. Not because we don't want to, but because like we're prioritizing managing the people who are actually blocked on growth to make sure that they can continue growing. The last thing that we want to talk about before we get into the Slido questions is like about these growth flags and the sentiment that like these things don't work and we should be doing X, Y, and Z instead. Frankly, to start, these things do work. They actively combat spam and abuse and bad actors on our platform and in our queues. So to say that they don't is kind of just incorrect. As far as what about all of the other stuff that could be being done instead, there's a lot of really great ideas about ways to make Discord a safer platform. Like, what about having more robust systems about detecting phishing links, for example, or better combating user bots aren't being looked into? Those things are being looked into, like quite actively. There are more teams at Discord than just us. The changes that we are making do not necessarily reflect the entirety of changes that all of Discord is thinking about. And there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that we might not be actively talking about because they're done by anti-abuse teams and not specifically like developer-facing teams like us. It's also worth noting that, as with all things safety, it's not a zero-sum game. Just to say that some measures don't solve every problem that exists and therefore they're not worthwhile is incorrect. That's like saying blocking 50 phishing sites isn't worth it because there could be a 51st. Security and safety is not a zero-sum game, and it is a collective effort. So there are a lot of great ideas about ways that we can make Discord safer in addition to what we're doing. Those things are actively being worked on.
Okay. That was verified bots. We're going to slide into the Slido questions. So, reminder that you can upvote questions that you're interested in seeing answers to at this link that I just put in chat. And we're just going to be going top down. Join me on my journey through the questions over the next 40 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Let's get started. Top question has 302 upvotes. It's actually two questions in one. So Mason, tell me, will bots be able to use per server avatars? And what's the status for the invite field on the guild member ad event?
Yeah, I feel like this is cheating to get two questions in like this, but that's okay. Will bots be able to use per server avatars? I don't have an answer to that right now, but we can look into it. That is sort of recently no longer in experiment mode, right? Like for a while we were testing to see if this was something that we wanted to keep around, and it is something that we want to keep around. So we can go look into bot support for that feature. As far as the invite field on guild member ad, this is difficult. I know that you're all going to refer to the PR from like probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point, that Binzi noted that a discussion was had and that we were going to make this field available and then it never happened, which, sorry for that never happening. Like, it is unfortunate and that slipped through the cracks. I will say though, the answer is that like we can't just take the truth that was how impactful that could be to Discord 4 years ago and apply it today. We're in a pretty different spot with like the scale of the platform and the good and bad that can come of this. The reason that this wasn't in place at first, right? That the invite field wasn't on guild member ad was because of things like invite tracking, which is not inherently malicious. Like I will say that straight up, but it can enable malicious behavior like paying for server invites and trying to advertise and getting rewards for more and more people joining your server, which can lead to a lot of unhealthy, inorganic, spammy, not great places on Discord. That's of course not the only reason for it, but it is a big thing that having this more easily accessible enables. 4 years ago, in that GitHub issue, we said that at that time it was probably fine. Before we just say like, well, we said that and so we'll roll it out, I think we need to take a look at this again. We need to take a look with our trust and safety team and understand how much of a problem is this right now? If we make this happen, how much more of a problem are we going to have? I mean, I think we all understand that like spam is something that Discord is actively trying to fight, especially in large communities in this. Spam is something that needs to be dealt with. This will lead to more spam. Like there is not an argument to say that it won't. It's just about the matter of risk that we are sort of willing to accept for the trade-off.
Very cool. All right. Yeah, Mason has perfect recall on all PRs in the GitHub API repo.
God.
He's
No, I
like
just remember that one plenty.
he's like Will Hunting, just perfect PR recall. Okay, next
Yeah,
question.
sorry, just
Oh,
really
go ahead.
quickly to the couple folks in chat, for the people that own bots that do this kind of stuff, I absolutely understand that the intent is not inherently malicious. Like, that is incorrect to say that like what you are doing is inherently bad because you are trying to do stuff like this. Absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that by making this stuff easier, it is easier for bad stuff to happen. Cool, thanks.
Okay. The next question is, will you allow bots to use emojis from any server, like webhooks and interaction buttons, selects, etc.?
Yeah, we should look into this because I was actually under the assumption when testing this morning that this was already a thing. So shows the scope of the API. Yeah, so the reason that this works for those is because, okay, let me actually back up a second here. This question is like half true. Bots are available to use bots can use cross-server emojis without Nitro. So because bots can't have Nitro, right? So if you are a bot in DDevs and you want to use one of our emojis in another private server, as long as you have permissions to use external emojis, you are free to do so. The question that this is asking is like, what about using any emoji from anywhere? Currently, that is not true. Only webhooks can currently do that. And the reason is because webhooks don't have like ownership in servers like a bot user does, because a bot is a user, right? So we just allow webhooks to use emojis from sort of anywhere because there is no way for them to like quote unquote belong to a server and be able to use those emojis like a user can. This is not true of bots, which is why that restriction exists. We can look into this though, but that is why this difference exists.
Okay.
Interaction replies are based on webhooks, which is why it works there too.
Great. We'll get right on that. Should I have said that? Probably not. Okay. Next question is, will bots get access to set their own banner?
In some way, yes. Let's leave it at that. That's more interesting. In some way, the idea of customization that looks like banners is something that we're interested in.
Okay. The next question is from Keith. Shout out to Keith for asking this question. Any updates on text field components?
Hi, Keith. Yes. I actually just finished writing the spec for this last week. We have some pretty interesting ideas about how to do like receiving text from users as part of like an interactions flow. It's pretty cool. It is a foundational thing that we can build to support this use case that can then be extended to a lot of other stuff. I think our goal is to still try to make this happen this quarter. Obviously, there's a lot of other big stuff as well, like permissions that are actively being worked on. But it's underway. I think next step is the technical spec, if I remember our series of events correctly. To me, the technical spec being, I've said in the product spec how I would like these things to work, and then the engineers on the team can tell me why I am wrong about the way that I assume that things work and how to actually make it possible.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line here is that we're actively working on this.
Yeah.
So that's the update for text field components. Sorry, whoever asked. We don't have anything to link you to right now.
Yeah,
But
no demos of this yet.
yeah, but something to look forward to. All right. Horst Explorer has a question. This is back to the suspicious growth topic, but maybe a bit of a more pointed question. Bot verification can be denied due to suspicious growth. There are no reliable insights on this metric for us bot devs. It hits us completely unexpected via manual review. The communication about it is very poor, with no way to appeal, risking waste of a lot of dev time. When will this be resolved?
Yeah, I think we talked about this at the top. I will say just very specifically, if you believe that your bot was incorrectly rejected, you can reach back out to our team and appeal. And we will be taking a look at the language of what that response says to make that a little bit clearer. The rest of this, I think, was answered in the original questions that we talked about at the top of the hour, and you can look to the transcriptions and video recording afterwards to see what we said if you missed it.
Okay. Next question is, do you intend to support variable length repeating arguments for commands like mass ban or pull?
I like how the next two questions were like flip-flopping back and forth. It looks like it might cross. I mean, the ergonomics of it kind of depend on the type, right? Like, so right now you can use like a string argument with comma separation to achieve this. We even go as far as like if you mention users inside or channels, if you mention something that can be resolved inside of that string, we will do that and send it to you in the resolved payload. So if you're making a poll and want to pick like a bunch of options, right? Um, like doing a series of comma separated strings is probably the way to do it. If you are trying to like ban 10 users or something like that, um, and you have that person mention all of those users, we do resolve them, and then you can use that resolved dictionary. There is a better way to do this, like allowing things like channels and users to be multi-select that we are very aware of. It's a good idea. It's something that we want to do because we have the ability to do it with strings and because we resolve those things. It is not currently more important than building stuff like permissions that are actually blocking, but it is on our list.
Good to know. Great. The next question is, will you add a field for guilds to detect if the application has the applications.command scope so we don't have to waste a request to know?
Interesting. I don't know that I've heard this question asked this way before. I'm not sure if there's like a specific way to fetch your own authorization on a guild, which is interesting, and something that we can think about. But I think the heart of this question, you hit a request and check for a 403. Yeah, there you go. That's one way to do it. um, I think the heart of this question is more like, hey, there is this second scope that we have now, and that we have to worry about. How do we make this easier? You know, um, and to answer sort of that underlying question, we want to do another migration so that people who currently only have the bot scope in guilds that they're added to will get the application.command scope. We have explicitly not done that migration until we have our new permission system in place, which we've stated before. Like, we know that last time we did the migration, a lot of folks kicked and re-added bots because they weren't happy with how slash command like permissions worked yet. So we don't want to do that again until we are confident in our new permission system, which is currently being worked on. And then there's also the question of like, there's a bunch of old invite links out on the internet that only have the bot scope. And can we sort of like bake in the command scope to the bot scope? And that is also something that we want to do, but also something that we don't want to do until permissions are ready. So both of those things should solve a lot of problems. I would also say like, if you know that you have invite links for your bot out on the internet, it might be a good idea to proactively update those to ask for the new scope and not just entirely rely on the migration for new stuff.
Okay. Thank you, Mason. Next question. Will bot servers ever be able to be verified or receive an official status other than just Discord's favorites? All of our favorites, Me6, Rhythm, Groovy.
All of our favorites. Um, verification is probably not the right program. The servers that are currently verified is some legacy stuff that's not really worth getting into. Um, I do think that the distinction of saying that this is the official support server for this bot or app is valuable. I don't know that plugging it into the partner or verification program is the right way to do it because of what those programs are supposed to mean. But I do think that a way to say, hey, this is my bot and this is its support server is valuable.
All right. Next question is from Mr. Crypt CX, not to be confused with Mr. Cryptic X. Does Discord have any plans to allow bot to play and receive video voice data?
Um, Desire, yes. Immediate plans, no. It is a not super trivial architecture change to make it happen. Um, we definitely want this to be possible. It's not on a plan right now.
Okay. Next question. Have you considered postponing the message intent deadline? It would be great for many bot developers as the current deadline means a lot of stress and uncertainty, especially for all the Python developers.
Yeah, we know that Python's in a tough spot right now. We have been looking at the other solutions that are coming up for Python developers, and we believe that there are there are a number of them, right? There's a lot of forks, there's a lot of extensions that have been made. Um, there is no like clear-cut community winner yet, which is totally valid. But a lot of those work appropriately and have the functionality that's necessary to get there. Some of them are totally new libraries, which like, hey, that's a lot of work to swap. Some of them are new libraries that are forks and like effectively like you change your package name and everything just works now. Some of them are extensions on top of DPy. Um, so we definitely recognize the work that Danny did over the many years to get DPy to the state that it's in, and not having it is a loss. But it's great that there are people who are trying to fill those gaps. I will also say that remember that bots still get access to DMs and mentions. So if for some reason your library doesn't support the full migration to interactions, it definitely should support mentions today.
Got it. Okay. Next question is, will you enable custom status for bots waiting long for that smiley face?
There was a technical reason why this didn't work, and I apologize that I don't remember. I will follow up later on this one because there is a reason baked deep into our real-time architecture that this doesn't just work. I don't remember exactly what it is, but we can follow up on this one in a written answer afterwards.
All right, we'll do that. Next question from Rohit. Are you planning to add more message components or slash command options? If yes, then what are they?
We are planning to do both of those things. Um, there are small improvements that we've already made, like putting min and max values on number components, which is good. There are new types that we're making, like the attachment type, which is in the API plan, which is actively being worked on. Some of you actually might see in the coming days some pretty big changes to how attachments work on desktop, which is a big portion of that work and was not insignificant. And then as far as new components, yes, but I guess message components in particular are useful for when the message, like it has to be actually attached to a message in chat. There are things that we want to solve, like getting freeform text input, that aren't necessarily new slash command options, but also aren't necessarily like direct message components, because frankly, a bunch of messages with blank text input fields in the middle of your chat view does not look good, and there are better ways to solve that. So yes, more features are coming. They may be more types of existing features, or they may be new things.
Alrighty. Next question. When will we be able to hide commands? It's been preventing me from even switching to slash commands in the first place. because we have some commands we'd like to keep internal?
After we do the permissions work. Right now, commands can be disabled with the permission system that currently exists. I agree that seeing a bunch of disabled commands is not a fantastic user experience. Um, Being able to hide commands actually takes like a huge re-architecture of the way that we send slash commands to the client. Um, in fact, the really quick example is like we pull commands 10 at a time when we show them to you and like paginate that list. And if the first 10 commands are hidden, well, then we have to go to the next 10. And if the next 10 commands are hidden, well, then we have to go to the next 10. And if there's 100 hidden commands in a row, it's going to be really, really slow to load a bunch of commands in your client. So we actually have to like pretty significantly change the way that our servers send slash commands to each client. And we haven't done that yet because we wanted to be sure that we knew all of the ways and all of the situations in which we wanted to hide commands, like based on permissions, like based on an NSFW toggle. We wanted to make sure that we had all of that stuff laid out of like, here's all the things that situations in which commands should be hidden. And then we can do the architecture work to say, how do we make that possible?
Got it. Yeah, it's definitely on the roadmap. I think it's included in the API plans.
Yeah, it's in the API. It's in the API plans. We haven't been not doing it because we don't want to. It's because the other work that we've done first is actually important to finish before we do that.
Yeah, there are a bunch of technical steps that need to take place beforehand. Okay, next question from Keith. Would it be feasible to set up an RSS feed or similar for actual API changes? Following the docs repo on GitHub gets spammy with typo corrections, grammar corrections, and other non-pertinent changes to docs and not the actual API itself.
I don't know if it's feasible, but it's definitely something that we want to do. Right now, we just have commits on the docs, right? And so those commits could be any number of things. I think an updated way to track changes and have the difference between like a change log and actual individual changes is something that we've seen other platforms do that is worthwhile. Like, so for example, there is just a list of like all the commits that have happened that actually like make changes to things. And then a change log is more for rounding up large changes and describing them. That's not something that we can just make happen today, but it's something that we want to make happen.
Yeah, we've been talking
Lot.
quite a bit about how to, you know, come up with a non-noisy way to do this. Um, great. Moving on. We have a question. When will staging reopen?
There are no plans to reopen staging.
Cool. Next question. Username 13 asks, what are you doing to block user bots? As far as I know, they're against the terms of service, but they are still prevalent and can do just as much damage as a bot, especially since they can access up to 200 servers with Nitro and have no privileged gateway intents, a big privacy concern. They're also a pain for mods.
Yeah, they sure are. User bots are a Discord-wide initiative, not necessarily like just this team. They would fall probably more under our safety teams, right? Because they are people like abusing our platform, not like developers doing things. But there are things that we've done in the past and things that we continue to do. Thank you for that link for the transparency report. That is a good place to start. Blocking user bots is a constant thing that we do. Obviously, they evolve, so we can't just make them all go away. Like, as our resources evolve to stop them, their resources evolve to get around things. But the huge benefit is that we can break their stuff with like no consequence. When we make breaking changes to the external API, we have to tell you about them, and they needs to be on some sort of like cadence, you know? When we break things for user bots, we can just break them because all that needs to happen is to make sure that the Discord client doesn't break. For example, user bots, I think, used to be able to like read through the guild sidebar very easily and get a list of folks like that. And that is just not something that they can do anymore. Like it is just straight up not a possibility for them to have that functionality. Um, we as the API team don't talk a lot about user bots because we talk about actual bots that you guys make, but there is a lot of work that goes into this stuff. We have entire teams of anti-abuse dedicated to fighting this problem. Our transparency report is a great place to start. And like I said, we can break their stuff as quickly as necessary without having to like worry about implications of it.
Okay. That was user bots. Next question is about message intent requirements. Can you please clarify some of the message intent requirements? Do we need to allow users to opt out if we only process data ephemerally and don't log it? What about if we only log data to server staff, like in the case of an automod, since allowing users to opt out of automod would be a bad idea?
Yes, definitely allowing users to opt out of an auto mod would be a bad idea. Um, I'm going to say that we're going to respond to this one in writing, just because we have a very large policy doc that was written and pushed out earlier this week. That is the source of truth, and I don't want to like slip on a word one way or the other and say something that is not like directly in contention with that, but doesn't carry the same quite weight. So we'll respond to this one in writing with the language from the policy document because that is the source of truth, not me talking.
Cool. Next question is, are there any plans to support client-side /command/interaction cooldowns? That would make the API feel a lot more complete and would make cooldowns a lot easier, considering the previous API decision to require a response made this somewhat difficult.
Um, I think last time we got this question, we had asked it to be brought to a GitHub issue for like a feature request because there is a cooldown on interactions. There's a cooldown on how often people can use slash commands and a cooldown on how often people can click buttons so that your server doesn't explode in if you like have something running on a very large guild. Um, the client side cooldowns aren't something that we've currently got planned, and I think my comment stands from last time of like open up a feature request and explain the use case. If one exists and I haven't seen it, I apologize. Like we'll go look, but that would be my answer for that right now.
Okay. Next question, how is the progress on the new permission system for slash commands?
It's very good. It is actively being worked on, and it is a very big project. Uh, Thank you to folks in the community who sort of talked to us about it, both on the moderator and the developer side, to make sure that we were building something that was going to work. Um, the API for this just about finished, I believe. We're currently working on making sure that audit log stuff works properly for when permissions change. And then the last part is going to be like building the front end interface to interact with that stuff. From there, we'll do some small tests and are open to making changes if there are pieces of it that don't feel like they're going to cover use cases appropriately. But progress is quite good. It is actively being worked on right now.
Great, it is. Next question is about music. When will you have an answer for music bots?
Um, if you are somebody who has been in the verification queue, uh, as we mentioned at the top of the hour, we have finished the internal review and are almost done replying to these tickets. If you haven't heard from us yet, you'll get an individual answer from us by about midweek next week. Thank you very much for your patience. As a reminder, when you are building bots for Discord, you have to comply with our terms of service. You also have to comply with the terms of service of other platforms that you might be integrating.
Okay. Next question, are there plans for context menu commands on channels?
Yes, there are plans for this. We haven't added them yet because we're working on other priority stuff like the permission system and actually localization, which I think is probably a question in here somewhere. So yes, we want to do it. yes, it's planned. It's on a roadmap to do. It's not happening super soon because those other big things are happening first.
Yeah. Next question is similar to a question that you answered earlier, but I'll read it anyway. It's from Voltus. The question is, do you have any plans about DPI? This library can easily be used by 5 to 10% of all running bots on Discord. Do you plan to create your own library or ask someone to make a new one / maintain DPI?
I think we answered this earlier. It is not on Discord to ask somebody to make a new DPI or take over maintaining DPI. That is entirely Danny and the DPI community's decision. But there are a lot of forks, new libraries that are really drop in extensions that are solving the need for interactions. And remember, you always get mentions.
All right. Next question is, when will bot developers be able to apply for the message intent? The answer is Monday, October 25th.
Indeed.
Hadge has a question. They ask, have you guys considered having / commands default on the bot scope so that every bot just gets the / command scope? This would make sense if all bots should be using / commands in the future, and you would still be able to invite with only applications.commands for HTTP only bots.
I think we answered this. The desire to make this easier and less of a two-step process is definitely there. We want to make sure that the permission system is there first so that we can do this like safely, especially in large communities.
Yeah. Cool. I like how this next question starts.
Tell you
Anonymous,
what.
I tell you what would be nice. Giving bots some Nitro exclusive features once they reach X amount of guilds. This requirement would be high, for example, 5,000, 7,000, or 10,000. These Nitro exclusive features would only be available to a bot. Some features such as banners, Nitro avatars, etc.
Um, Probably not gonna do it that way. Sorry. Um, there's not a ton of like I was thinking about this the other day. There's not a ton of Nitro features that like you don't that there's not a ton of Nitro features that make sense for a bot to have that they don't currently have access to. Some of the newer ones, yes, because they're new. But a lot of the older stuff, like we've kind of just allowed bots to have. Um, I think there is a valid question of like, what is our stance on what Nitro features bots should have and what should they not? And I don't think that we have a strong stance on that right now. As we invest more and more into Nitro is a valid question that we should be thinking about and working with that team about. But I don't think just like having a real big bot is the answer to how to get access to those things.
Yeah. We got another question from Kaj. Will bots ever have access to guild avatars or 4,000 character message content? I think we just talked about guild avatars, but 4K
Yeah,
characters. Yeah.
the 4K character message content is one that we've like sort of dealt with, and if there's still problems about this, please let us know. The biggest use case for this, I mean, obviously, other than sending really long messages, is like for logging, right? Like if somebody comes into your server and starts spamming with 4,000 character count messages, it breaks logging bots because they then try to log that message and it is longer than the number of characters that they have. So what we've done is we've updated one of the embed fields, I think the description field, which we saw was commonly used to do this type of logging, to over 4,000, 4096, maybe a little bit more, so that you can use that to log that message and then also still like have the rest of the embed to save the metadata about it that you need. So I don't think there's any plans to like let bots just send 4,000 character count messages in general, but the solution for logging bots that was breaking should be fixed.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. When will Discord implement proper nesting for subcommands so there isn't just a long list of the question mark? I don't know if that's a
I think it's
typo.
of them.
Oh,
Yes, looking at this view pains my soul every day. I think that's happening really soon, right, Ian?
Yeah, it's on our list of things to do eminently for sure.
Yeah.
There are things that we want to get done before then, like permissions is a pretty good example of that. Some other projects as well.
Uh, yes, but the proper nesting of subcommands and stuff is on that like API things that we're gonna do pin discussion. So it is imminently a thing to cross off.
Indeed. Zelda has a question. They ask, what are the plans on better management for developers in the dev portal, such as easily seeing what commands are registered and the ability to remove them?
Yeah, this is a really great question. The dev portal needs a lot of love. It's very functional, and that's yes, it's functional. Um, right now, we rely pretty heavily on tools that the community makes to do nice stuff like this. Um, that's good enough for now, but the dev portal in general needs a bigger holistic overhaul. That's more than just like more features like this, although like absolutely this is something that should exist, but also like more than just managing your application and then a link to some documentation. Like what exists in Discord that you can build? How do I find answers to things? What about some guides and walkthroughs? What about app management pages that tell you a little bit more about what's necessary rather than a bunch of toggles stuffed into some places? Um, so there aren't any imminent plans because we're so focused right now on interactions and slash commands. But I would say that like probably sometime next year, we'll be investing a lot more heavily on the developer portal side of things.
Yeah, and Mason can confirm that this slash command like UI view is my favorite thing
Yes,
ever.
you made one of these, didn't you?
I did, but it's not ready for the dev portal.
Not ready for
Um,
the world to see.
yeah, but gonna give dev portal some love. Um, moving on. In the Q&A follow-up, you briefly mentioned you plan to support localization. Is there an ETA for this feature?
Yes. It is actually actively being worked on. Um, we're taking a little bit of a look at how we pipe around localized strings right now, because it's just like a very large localized dictionary of strings, which looks very ugly. Unfortunately, there's not like a better way to do this. But localization comes in two parts. One is like, how do I localize my description names, my command names, my option names? Um, that is being worked on right now, actually. The second side is like, how do I respond to a user in the language that they speak? Like, how do I know what language a user wants to be responded to in? Right now, you have to ask them. We're going to be talking to like the security and privacy folks here at Discord to talk about like, is it possible to make user locale a more easily visible thing for developers, and like what privacy concerns come with that if we were to do that? So that is one half of it that still needs to be solved, but the how do I localize my command names and descriptions is happening right now.
As we speak, localization.
You can get the user locale with OAuth. Having to OAuth a bunch of people to use your app is like not a great experience if it's like a bot in a server. So the question is like, can it be more pass through, and if so, what happens?
Yeah. Okay. Next, there's some good thoughts in chat. But anyway, next question is, will regex custom argument options ever be a thing?
This might be a better question for you, Ian, because this goes a little bit beyond my technical abilities. We want to do this, but just like slapping some regex validation on strings is not a great way to do it. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about like the technical reason why.
Yeah, I mean the problem is malicious regexes um, with engines that support backtracking. So we need to figure out a way to do this securely. That's
Yeah,
kind of the answer. It's complicated.
yeah, it is complicated, but the sort of filtering system that we set up to make use of like min and max values for integers and numbers is something that can be extended to do something like this a little bit more generically.
Correct. Yeah.
Did someone say regex details of the Cloudflare outage? Yeah, that's probably a good way to sum that up, huh?
Yeah. Definitely something we've been talking about, but because of the complexity, there are other things that we want to burn down first. Okay. Just a heads up, we have about 3 minutes left in the event. Let's do one more. I don't really want to end on this one because we talked about it already, but
Can we just like increase the limit of commands? We talked about that one. Maybe we can just like skip through to some newer stuff.
okay. Okay, Sebastian says, will you add that you can select roles or channels in select menus like that you can select roles channels in the select menu because now you are limited to 25 options. I'm not going to read all this, but I guess the idea roles or channels dynamically populated in a select menu.
Yeah, definitely. Also making select menus like better searchable, maybe hooking it into the autocomplete stuff that has happened would be really cool. The current select menu component is, yeah, Ian's sweating. The reason he's sweating is because the current select menu component is like brand new, built in conjunction with us and the accessibility team at Discord. So huge benefits. It is a very easily accessible component for people using things like screen readers. And that's why we decided to make use of this new component. The other side of it, though, is like it doesn't support some of this stuff. We have to go build support for that stuff. It is stuff that we want to do. It just like it doesn't just work right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a cool idea and probably the most common feature requests we see for select.
Yeah, and some of you may see that there are selects in other parts of our app that do something like this already. Those might not be using the new component that we want to use, and actually will be things that have to get migrated.
Yeah. Okay. The next question isn't a question, just says thanks, Mason. So I'm gonna echo that. Thanks, Mason.
Thank you all for
Let's see if we can
spending
all
your
get
days
banned.
here. Is this when the auto mod kicks in? Yes. Thank you all. We really enjoy doing these. We love answering the questions and being able to be here to answer those questions. There's another question in here somewhere like, are we going to keep doing these? Yeah, our goal is to do these every month, maybe with slightly different themes. Although Q&A goes a long way just because of these are new, and so there's a lot of questions out there. But we want to keep doing these. We think that they're super valuable, and we're glad that you like them too.
Yeah. The Q&A is super important because it raises issues that, it's like a signal to us like, hey, we need to take a second look at some of these issues that come up. So thank you all for doing that. And like I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to follow up with written answers for some questions that we didn't have time to get to today.
Yes, and as a reminder at the top, this is going to be recorded, uploaded. I'm sure somebody's got a transcription running, and we will have those written answers to things that we didn't get to.
Cool.
Cool. I think that's all for today. There's plenty of other questions, and we'll get to those in our written answers.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming and listening. Hope this was useful and worthy of your time. Really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you
See you
all.
next time.
Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy Path of Exile League release day. If you have build ideas, let me know because I'm stuck.
Cool. Looks like we have to unban some people for saying thanks. Okay. Event over. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.